Hi, welcome to episode 417 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarns and knitting patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, and now I'm gonna fumble for the date. It is Monday, April 3rd, and I hope that you are having a lovely week. It is Monday, as I said. I went back to work this morning, and actually it was exciting because I had a bunch of new tasks to do, and so I have been busily working and humming my way through the day with a little music on, and it's been very nice. And the weather here has changed a little bit. Over the weekend it was quite windy. As you may have seen, quite a few of the states in the US had tornado activity. We were lucky in that we did not have tornado activity, but we did have very, very strong winds. But by yesterday it was both warmer and the winds were a little bit less. It was 72 degrees yesterday, and for us it was nice enough to be outside. And today is somewhat similar. It's a little overcast, the sun comes and goes, but spring is definitely on the way, and that does bring tornado season for us. All here in the Midwest and in parts of the South, and my thoughts are with those who were affected by weather this weekend. It's one of those things. It's so odd to me that the United States is so large that we have vastly different weather everywhere, and that it can be nice and pretty and sunny and the trees can start to bud where I am, and that so many places not that far from me can be in dire straits. So something to think about. Also, enjoy the weather while you have it, because you never know what's coming next. So I hope that you had a good weekend. Mine was fairly restful. On Saturday, we mostly hung around. I did buy a new pair of running shoes. I am not really a runner. I'm really more of a jogger. And we are participating in a series of, my husband is doing the half marathons and I'm doing the 5Ks this spring. And the first one was last weekend. The second one is next weekend. And last weekend I noticed that my shoes did not feel bouncy as they once had, and that it felt like I was hitting the pavement pretty hard. And I don't know how long I've had those shoes, but it has been quite a while because I don't put that many miles on them. So I went and got a new pair of running shoes, which was nice. I tried them out yesterday and they feel pretty good. So I might wear them in the 5K that's coming up this weekend. We'll see. I know they say not to wear new shoes for until you've really broken them in, but of course I just kind of walk and jog, so I don't know if that's going to be so much of a problem. So that was Saturday, and then yesterday I had a really nice day. I went out and got coffee with a friend. It was nice enough that we were able to sit outside, which was wonderful because we are both still a little cautious about, dining inside establishments. And I mean, my husband and I do go out to eat, but I try to be a little bit careful in terms of places that are overcrowded. Anyway, so we got to sit outside yesterday. It was still a little windy, but it was nice and warm, and we had coffee and chatted and knitted, and it was just really nice. I always forget. So I grew up in California, where the seasonal change in general, not this year because the weather has been odd this year, but in general when I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of differentiation between the seasons. Sure, it was warmer in summer and a little bit cooler in the winter, but we didn't have like a lot of seasonal change around us. And so I always forget what a breath of fresh air the first few weeks of spring can be, when the weather warms up and the trees bud, and it's just this feeling when you go outside, just because it's been kind of usually, I don't even know that this winter has been so bad, but it's been overcast and cold and windy, and just all of a sudden spring is on the way, and we have a few really nice weeks, and then it gets really hot. So I always love to kind of savor those few weeks that are wonderful. So I don't know if this is exactly the kickoff. We could still have some cold days ahead. We could dip back down. We could have more snow. Anything's possible. But like I said, I'm enjoying it while I can. So then yesterday afternoon, I worked in a booth for Stitches at Home. I work for a vendor who had a booth there, so it was virtual, so I got to do it from my own office here. And then yesterday evening, I had knit night with friends. So it was a day of nice weather and enjoyable crafting. I have chatted for a little bit. To be honest, this podcast is going to be a little on the short side. I have been fairly monogamous this week in pushing towards only 1 or 2 projects, and I only really brought one of them to show you. So there is not a lot for me to share this week. So first off, I am drinking tea. I am drinking it in my Greenbridge mug, which is either an alpaca or a llama. I confess that when they're drawn like this, I really can't tell. I think it's an alpaca. And Greenbridge pottery used to exhibit, I don't know if they still do, they might, I haven't been back, to Maryland Sheep and Wool, which I went to, the year Roxy was born, so about 9 years ago. Oh, I feel old. I feel like it's been a long time. Anyway, this mug was one of my souvenirs from that trip. And so today I am drinking Bora Bora, which is, I can show you, but it won't show you very much. It is from Tea Market, which is my pseudo-local tea shop. It's actually probably about 25-30 miles from my house, but it used to be right next to where I worked when I worked in my desk job 5 years ago. And so I haven't been in a while, but they have some wonderful teas. They often use Harney & Sons as a base and then blend some of their own. And Bora Bora is a black tea with passion fruit and a few other flavors, and it just has a real nice tropical feel, but it also is, it's not a tisane or an herbal. It does have black tea in it, so it will give me a little pick-me-up for the rest of the afternoon. So that is lovely, and I'm almost out, so I may need to go shopping soon. Although I have plenty of other teas. I probably should work on those. So let's talk about what I've been working on. Basically, the 2 things I have been dividing my time between are working on chickens for the City Girl Farm, and I didn't bring that to show you today, although I actually have some purple yarn this week. It's all one color, it's just purple, but they are making a purple one, and so I am working on that. The week previous I was doing a white one, but I basically spent most of last week working on the white one, and I've only had the purple since Friday. So I am working on those, and then the other thing that I am almost done with, I think I might finish it tonight, I think, is the Linen True Shawl. That is by Uta Narwatil, and I'm sure I am pronouncing these very incorrectly. I'm just sort of sounding them out. And it is a pattern on Ravelry. It is for a shawl pattern, and the shawl is designed in modular triangles and stripes. And I am working on this pattern. It's a sample for Zen Yarn Garden, but I am really enjoying how this pattern is coming together, and I am very likely to knit this again for myself. I think it would be amazing in handspun or mini skeins. There are just a lot of fun things that I think you could do with this. So I am knitting out of a somewhat new base yarn to Zen Yarn Garden. It is their glitter, fine fingering weight glitter. And so they're calling it their super fine glitter is what they call it. And it comes in regular cakes. At least right now I have kind of a natural color, which is undyed, and it's 90% superwash merino. Yes? Yeah. 90% superfine superwash merino, which they get their merino milled in Italy. They get it from Italy, and it is super soft. You would swear there's some cashmere in here. It is so soft. So it's superwash superfine merino, and then it's 10% stellina. So it's got a little bit of a sparkle, but you can't really feel it, and it's not enough to be glaringly obnoxious. It's really hard to see in the white. And then in addition to the 400 yard skeins, they have also dyed it in 680 yard, 170 gram blanks that they then wind into cakes. So it also comes in gradient cakes. This is the second cake. I had to dip into this one to work on the border for it, and I knew I would need a second one because it wasn't quite enough. Like I said, the cakes are 680 yards, and the pattern calls for about 800 yards for your main color, and then about 400 yards for your, well, I guess they call it your, like, your color, your like ombre colorway, your color changing like the main color, and then you kind of got a background color that works in edges and as a contrast. And you basically use almost twice as much of this one as you use of the other. So I am still on my first skein of the white, but I am on my second cake, and I will not fully use this cake. But this is in the Inferno colorway, and you can see as I tilt it, you can see a little bit of the sparkle in there. This has this is blacks and browns and oranges and reds, and it's really, really beautiful. And as I said at the beginning, I was skeptical of how it would play out in the shawl, because the shawl calls for short color repeating yarns, not like a big long gradient, but I really actually do think it has come out really nicely. So without further ado, let me show you where I am at. I am almost done, and of course I ended up in the middle of a row. So I will try and show you where I'm at. So as you remember, we started with 3 triangles, and then we built some stripes, and then we built a row of 13 triangles. And last week I had done all but the final triangle, so I finished that, and then there is another large striping section, and then you get to what I've been calling kind of these sawtooth edges. They are short row shaped, so you'll have little triangles down at the bottom, and I am on the last couple of rows of the triangles. I've got like I've got this white, and then I've got one more color, and then one more white, and then I am done. I am not 100% done knitting the shawl. When I finish that, the last thing to do is to go across the top, and we'll put a couple rows of white and color across the top, kind of to make it all one continuous line, because the shawl the modular shapes come together a little odd, and so it's not exactly a perfect straight line across the top. So once I finish the bottom edge, I will go back and do just a real short edge on the top edge. I think it's about 6 rows, 8 rows, if that. And then after all of that, then I will block it and everything will lay flat, and I think this is going to be stunning. I'm sorry that I can't really show you all of it today. You can kind of see just a portion of it, but you can see how the colors played out. So we started at the dark colors and we moved through them, and then the center section is very orangey red. You can see we got into some real bright orange in there, kind of at the center of the Inferno, and then we moved back out, and then I started the second one basically in the dark again, so the edges are fairly dark as well, and you can see they're actually, this is the one point at which there was quite a bit of transition, because you're knitting these short row shapes kind of all in a row. So you can see I started in the dark section. Ooh, I'm gonna pull stitches off the needle. I hope not. Nope, I didn't. So you can see that just a second, just getting this where I can show you easily. You can see that we started in the dark section, and I started working on these sawtooth edges, which is what I have been calling them. I think because I've been spending my time in the quilting world, I don't know if that's really what they're called, but then you can see we're moving into the lighter colors, kind of the transition, and towards the end we're getting into kind of the reds and oranges. So that's the only spot where I really think the gradient is a little odd across there, but otherwise I don't think it's too much of a problem. And I do really, really, really love the way this is coming out. I think this would be amazing in hand spun. I think there's so many different things. This is upside down, but you can just kind of see how the colors are playing out at the bottom edge. I think this would be really amazing in a lot of different things. It would be great in Noro. You'd have to use well, you could use like silk garden fingering, or you could use the sock weight, but I think it would be really amazing in a lot of different things. So this has been a fun knit. It's been really kind of interesting. Sections of it are modular, sections of it are not, and I honestly think I might knit this one again. So again, this is Linen True by Uta Narwatil. It is available honestly only on Ravelry, unfortunately. It is a paid for pattern, and I am knitting it exactly as written, except for the fact, no, I'm knitting it exactly as written, and I think actually I'm using the same needle size it calls for. My except for the fact was going to be I might have gone up, or well, I might have gone down a needle size, but actually I don't think I did. I think these are 6s, might be 4s. I can't remember. I think I used exactly what the pattern called for on this one, since it was a shawl. So that's where I'm at with that. By next week it will be blocked, and I will be ready to show you the finished project, and I'm sure of that, because even if I don't finish it tonight, I'll finish it tomorrow night. I really have I think max I have about 14 more rows to do, so I should be able to get that done. So that's really the main thing that I have been working on this week, and I really, really, really want to finish it. I did not go back to the yellow socks, although my hope is that I will cast on that second sock this week and maybe get through it. I don't know. It means if I finish a sample, it means that it's probably time to cast on another sample. And for my next sample, I'm going to be doing kind of a knit, well, I'm calling it a knit until you run out shawl because that's probably what I'm going to do with it. It is called the Sun Scrap Shawl, and I'm sorry I did not bring a designer name with me. I will add them in the show notes, which are at thecornerofknitandtea.com. And if hopefully the designer will have a link off of Ravelry. It is a free pattern, so they may not. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and essentially it is a asymmetrical triangle, and it was written to be used with scraps. So it was written to be used, I think, with fingering weight scraps held triple. And then you just kind of create this, you start at a point and you just kind of increase and create this fairly simple triangular shawl. And I'm not even sure that there's like a big stitch pattern. Like it's a really, really simple pattern. And the designers or the dyers at Zen Yarn Garden decided that what they wanted to do was really feature this new glitter base. That's the one that I'm knitting with in the linen true shawl. And so what they sent me is they sent me a blank that they had dyed. So I don't know the colorway name on this. They did not give me the name, but I know that they have a lot of these blanks up on the website now. So if you look for the Superfine glitter base, I believe they come in 13 different gradient colorways. And so this one is a pink one with red and orange at the center, and then it goes back out to red and purple. Did I say pink? I think I meant purple. Purple, pink and red, and then orange, and then back out. So it's actually a little bit similar to what I have just been doing, but a little bit different. And they decided that they wanted me to just hold it together with white. So again, I will be using the natural. It is the glitter base. Like I said, it comes 400 yards to the skein, and I'm going to be holding it with the white, which ought to tone this down just a little bit and give it I feel like maybe almost a tie-dyed look or a little something like that, but it will really let the yarn shine. It's just going to be a simple pattern, and so I expect I'm going to whip that out fairly quickly because it is just going to be some really simple knitting. Now, if you haven't knit from a blank before, it is totally possible to knit from a blank. What I showed you earlier, the gradient cake, that's from Zen Yarn Garden, these cakes, these start as blanks. So a blank is basically blank yarn is undyed yarn knit up into basically a loose knit. Basically it looks a little bit like a scarf, but it is knit into a loose knit, usually on a knitting machine. So and they are pre-divided to be the right length of yarn. So these, again, this is 170 grams and 680 yards. And what happens is Zen Yarn Garden dyes them so they can paint on them when they're in this blank form, which is a real easy way to create a gradient yarn. And then what they can do is one of the ends basically just unravels like you would unravel your knitting. Let me find the end point here. Oh, it's right here. So it's right here. Oh, and it's stuck in the, here. So you unravel it basically just like you would unravel your knitting, which you never want to do, but of course we have to do it sometimes. You just unravel it, and what they do is they wind it into a cake, which is what you see there, or you can just work off the blank. The yarn sometimes is a little bit crinkly, almost looking a little bit like ramen noodles, but you can knit with it and it doesn't change the gauge and it will wash out. Some people prefer to skein these up and wash them beforehand so that their yarn is flat, so it doesn't have the little, it doesn't look a little bit like ramen, but I actually don't mind knitting from blanks. And this one in particular is very loosely. I have gotten them where they're more tightly knit, but this one is very loosely knit. So it should come apart very easily, and I'm excited to just kind of play with this week. So that hopefully will be cast on, and I will have a little bit to show you next week. I'll probably still be in the purple part unless I really get on a wild tear, but I would really like to finish those yellow socks this week. So I think I'm going to try and squeeze those in as well. So hopefully next week I'll have an FO, maybe 2 FOs, and a new project to show you. So quick sip of tea. we'll cover some spinning and then we'll be done. Like I said, I know it's a short one, but I just don't have tons to share. I guess that's what happens when I just concentrate on working and finishing one project. I'm also daydreaming about sweaters, and I might let myself do something a little fun between one sample and the next. I might actually swatch for my next sweater. I have some yarn that I brought back from our Norway trip last August, and recently I found a sweater pattern that I really wanted to use, and I have been excited about it. And it's a little weird to get excited about knitting a like DK to worsted weight sweater just as the weather is about to turn warm, but you know, I can't help when those bugs strike, and I just want to do it. So the last couple weeks I have been working on, I think it was about a week and a half that I was working on a braid from Hello Yarn, which was called Double Double Toil and Trouble. It was an October braid, and I believe it was on Falkland. I will have to double check, but the I'm about to put this up in my shop, and so the listing will definitely be correct because I will check that. But it was a great braid with oranges and purples, and it came out really nice and soft. It came out a little bit thicker than I wanted. My guess is it's a sport to DK weight, and I probably only got around 300 yards, but this is what it looks like, and it just has all those amazing fall colors. It's purples and oranges and browns, and it's just really a lovely kind of fall colored skein, and if you are into fall colors, this one will definitely suit your fancy. So I'm gonna, this has already been washed and skeined. What really all I need to do right now is measure it and then put the listing up in the shop. So this one will be in the shop by the time you see this. And I hope that you'll enjoy it. So, or it will float someone's boat and they'll want to take it home and make something lovely out of it. It is not superwash, but it could be used to make some thicker DK weight socks if your feet aren't huge. I think it would make really nice mitts. It would also make a nice hat. It is soft enough to be worn close to the skin. It is not like super soft, but it's not rough either. Falkland is kind of a longer stapled wool, but it's still like blue-faced Leicester and other kind of, we're not getting into really long staples. We're not getting into anything that's rough on the skin or like meant specifically for outerwear. So, you know, it won't be cashmere soft against your skin, but it is definitely not itchy by any stretch of the imagination. So that is what I worked on this week. I am currently in the middle of a braid from Kim Dye's Yarn. I showed you this last week. Like I said, this is Kim Dye's Yarn. Kim does some colorways of the month each month, and you can order them through your local yarn store. I think she has some that you can order straight from her, but she also does some that are only available through her local yarn store program. And this is a 75% BFL, 25% Tussa Silk. And the colorway is City Rainbow. And man, is it soft and does it want to shed. I was kind of covered in fiber last night. That will go away once it's all spun up. It won't continue to shed fiber. It's just when it's kind of in the fiber form that hair's kind of, BFL has a lot of crimp in it, and so it tends to be very fluffy and it can get caught on things, and yeah. So this is City Rainbow. It is very much a muted rainbow. I think about it almost as like a rainbow in the rain. There is some gray, but there are also some other lovely colors like blues and greens and yellows. And I think it's kind of blowing it out on the camera here because I don't think everything's showing up truly. But pink and orange, and it's just got fun little speckles and bits of color. And I think this one is gonna, it may end up looking a little bit pastel when I get done with it, just because there's so much white in the braid that I think it's gonna soften out the colors quite a bit. But I really think this is gonna be a fun one, and this will be up in my shop. BFL silk is very soft. It totally could be worn close to the skin, or it would also make nice socks because BFL is a little bit longer stapled, so it will wear well, and the silk in it will add some strength and a little bit of shine. So I think this would be this would be good for kind of either close to the skin or, like I said, you could do socks or something else with it. So that's what I'm working on this week, and I'm hoping that maybe I'll be finished with it. I have about half of it done, so I'm hoping maybe I will be finished with it in time to show you next Sunday or Monday. As you have guessed, I still can't figure out what my schedule is. For now, I might end up sticking with Mondays because I can hop in and podcast for about a half an hour in the middle of the day, or towards the end of the day at like 4:30, if I've gotten enough done for the day. So I don't know. We'll just have to see how I do it, but it might stick to Mondays because I'm thinking this is working, and I'm more likely to do it on my lunch break. So yeah. So that is all I have for you today. I hope that you are doing well, that you are finding lots of crafting mojo. The other thing that I didn't share on the last podcast is this past week I succumbed to my new job is working for a quilting company. And I am not a quilter, but apparently I am potentially gonna be. So it didn't take very long after I joined. Now I have been working for them as a contractor for the last 6 or 8 months. So I've spent a lot of time, and part of what I am doing is I am helping them create kind of a repository of quilting tutorials and content. And so I have watched probably about 1,000 quilting videos in the last 6 or 8 months. So I keep telling people I'm a legendary quilter in my mind because I've watched all of these videos. I have not sat down at a sewing machine and tried anything yet. And I do know from my very rudimentary adventures in sewing that I can't really sew a straight line. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. But a few weeks ago, well, and I will say a lot of the quilting tutorials that I have been watching are not entirely my style. I tend to be a little bit more modern in my aesthetic tastes, and a little less traditional, and we have a lot of traditional quilting content. And so I hadn't seen much that had really like caught my attention and made me want to go, ooh, I really want to make that. But a couple weeks ago, I found a video that did, and I kind of bookmarked it and thought about it. And then a week or so ago, I went and looked and browsed through the company website to see what was available because, of course, I get a little bit of an employee discount. And then last Friday, they offered a special. It was a buy one, get one half off, and I might have put a quilt in my cart and checked out. So, well, and I should say, one quilt, some assembly required. I put one quilt's worth of fabric in my account. So, I have a quilt quantity of fabric coming. It is probably a throw quilt, 60 by 80-ish. So it's not small, but it's also not like I'm not making a quilt for a queen size bed or anything like that. I am going to piece the top of the quilt, and then the other thing that my company does is they do offer long arm quilting services, and so I'm going to take advantage of that and have someone else quilt my quilt for me. If I like it, I will probably tackle some smaller projects at home, but I just have a plain domestic sewing machine and not even one that has a huge bed. So there's not a lot of room to do actual quilting projects and get those things through the machine. I could probably do like a table runner or maybe a baby quilt or a little bit of a wall hanging, but I don't think that I could actually get like a full quilt through there. So we're going to see how this goes. I will tell you in the past, the thing that I haven't liked about sewing is that sewing is very, very precise in a way that knitting is not. If you mess something up in knitting, you can rip back or you can sort of adjust to make things right. For instance, if I'm knitting a pattern and I have one extra stitch and I can't figure out where I got that extra stitch, if I don't want to rip back to where I know I had the correct stitch count, I can always knit 2 together. Need an extra one, missed a yarn over, I can always fix that and add that back in. Once you cut your fabric is cut, and particularly in garment sewing, but also for quilt making, you are kind of stuck with what you have. Now, in quilt making, if what you're doing is making sort of quilt blocks and your quilt blocks come out a little too small, you could just make the quilt a little bit smaller. But like in garment sewing, once you've cut something and sewed it, and if it's wrong, you can always make it smaller, but you can't make it bigger. So we're going to see how this goes. I'm sure I will come back to you with some reports at some point. Oh, and I forgot. I guess this is not going to be as short a podcast as I thought. I did want to talk about what I am wearing today. So I am wearing the Zen Zip tee that I finished just a few weeks ago. I cast this on back in December. It is a little bit of a tee that it's knit vertically, or it's knit side to side. If you'll remember, I started in the middle of the back and worked my way around to the fronts, and then I joined the fronts together and finished the sleeve treatment, and I finished it. And I'm not going to stand up and model it for you, but one thing I wanted to cover, because I figured it out yesterday when I put it on, and I am going to try and back up enough. Let me just move the camera just a little bit. I know this is going to make you seasick, but just so you can get a little bit more of an idea what I'm talking about. So I think it fits really nicely through the shoulders and through the sleeves, and it fits really nicely. I definitely got the correct width, because this is something where you're trying to decide how many rows to knit using your row gauge to figure out what the width of the sweater is, because I'm knitting kind of up and down here. So my length is basically predetermined by how long my rows are, and my width, or kind of what covers my front and back, is determined by how many rows I knit wide. And the pattern itself is a recipe. You take some measurements, you do a gauge swatch, and then you calculate out roughly where you should be and how many rows you should put in. But what I wanted to show you is this interesting tidbit. And this shows where I could grow as a tech editor, as well as thinking about things in design when I'm knitting for myself. The designer and I have quite different physiques. She is very tall and thin, and I am a little bit shorter and a little bit bustier. Not a ton, but just a little bit. And so what we found when I finished this is, and I'm going to turn sideways, you can see a little bit. Let me turn sideways more so you can see. You can see that in the back, there's a little bit of a gap back here. There's a little bit of extra fabric at the top of the back of my sweater. And I could completely fix that and eliminate that by, remember I said your width is the width of your, is how many rows you knit, because they're stacking on each other to create your width. So what I realized is that my front, because my bust is here, requires more width at the front than I need at the back. And so for this type of a pattern, what I would do is I would knit the back slightly smaller. So, and in this pattern, as I showed you, there is a center section and then the two side sections. And so in this pattern, what I would likely do, I could pull out some of my rows at the center, or I could pull them out in this black section at the sides. And then I would just have a slightly shorter, I would match up my sleeve ends, but I would have a slightly shorter bit at the back neck than at the front neck. And that would take care of the little pooch in the back that I have here. As it is, I'm going to wear it. It's fine. It doesn't bother me. In fact, it's mostly hidden by my hair, so it's not really a big thing. But if you are thinking about your knits and about how you are working on your knits, particularly if you are very busty in the front, you may want to consider that in some patterns, you may want to knit a larger size on the front and a smaller size on the back. And so if I do this one again, and I think I might, because she's coming out with a variation on the pattern, it's going to be kind of more long sleeved and a tunic length. But I will remember that when I go into the next one, because I will probably pull somewhere between 4 and 8 rows out of the back. That will make my back just a little bit skinnier, maybe about 1.5 inches or so. And that means that then my front will still fit nicely over my front, and the back will fit better over the back, because I really could probably pull 1 inch to 2 inches out of the back, and it would probably fit better back there. So that's just a little something to think about as you are making patterns. I know one of my friends mentioned that she had that problem with the love note that she knit from Tin Can Knits. And what she did is she knit the pattern through the yoke, and then when it was time to divide for the sleeves, she put a few more stitches on the front section than on the back section. So I believe in the love note it instructs you that, like I said, that's a pattern by Tin Can Knits. It's a pretty simple pattern. And I believe that when you knit the sweater, I haven't knitted, it instructs you to basically divide the fronts and backs evenly. the front and back stitches evenly at the sleeve split. And she said she experimented a little bit, and what she found worked best for her was to put a few more stitches to the front side and make the back just a little skinnier. It makes the yoke fit basically the same, but then when she gets down to the bust area, she has a little bit more real estate on the front to cover her bust and a little bit less on her back because, of course, she doesn't have corresponding real estate back there. So I hope you enjoyed those little tips. Again, I'm not an expert, but it also is a good learning lesson for me to think about in terms of as I move forward in tech editing, because I did give this, the pattern is, the Zen Zip Tee is by Suzanne Nielsen, and she's a friend of mine, and she did ask me to take a look at it, and it isn't something that I thought about as I went through the pattern, but of course I wasn't, because the pattern is a recipe, I didn't completely think about the fact that people might need more on the front and less on the back, and that should potentially be a consideration. So we're going to add that as notes to the pattern, and like I said, I just wanted to give you that as an idea in the future as you're making sweaters for yourself, that you certainly could make some of those modifications on your own, or experiment with them and just give yourself another inch or two on the front rather than the back. So I will say, as I always do, I look forward to seeing you next time on the podcast, and happy sipping. I just screwed that all up, didn't I? Until I see you next time, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.